Hi, my name is Christopher Gunter and I'll be your facilitator today. Today's title of today's talk will be centered around the concept of separation and loss. From the perspective of separation and loss, most people only think about losing a loved one or the actual loss of a person. However, there are several other implications that we should consider from the perspective of being an adoptive parent or resource parent. As a resource or an adoptive parent who is dealing with a child who has dealt with separation and loss, one of the primary things that we should consider is the grieving process. The grieving process is primarily broken down into 5 categories. Number 1, shock and denial. 2, anger. 3, depression. 4, bargaining. And 5, resolution and acceptance. 5 stages of grief have extreme implications on individuals. But I do want to say that the 5 stages of grief do not happen in rank order according to this particular order. It varies according to individual experience. So I just wanted to start there and give that point. For me, when I lost my grandfather in 2015, the first thing that I experienced was the feelings of shock and denial. I did not want to really feel the pain of losing a family member. And so I disconnected myself from the emotional experience of what it felt to lose a person that was so close to me, because you're so stunned. It's not real. It's not my reality. There was little to no emotion in that experience. But later on, as I went throughout the process, I experienced phase 2 of the grieving process, which was anger. Anger was literally one of the first emotional experiences that I had when I was in the grieving process. During this process, you have little to no patience for other people. You're just completely on edge all the time. You're blaming other people. You are blame shifting. You are emotionally shifting your emotions onto other people, which is completely inappropriate. But at the time, I just wasn't aware. So for me, that was the second emotion that I experienced throughout the process of grieving my grandfather. Phase 3 for me was the phase of depression. Depression is literally the phase of isolation, of mental withdrawal, physical withdrawal from the real world and the people around you. So you can be operating and showing up in the world every day, but literally you're not showing up in the world. It's like you're a ghost, right? It's like I'm a shell with nothing here. A lot of the times the implications of depression for individuals shows up in their eating patterns. It's literally a lot of the times the opposite. So for me, I ate a whole lot, but for someone else who may be experiencing depression, they may eat little to nothing. However, again, it's just a process of withdrawing from the world, the process of despair to avoid the pain that you're experiencing in real life. Now, phase 4 of the grieving process varies and stems from the concept of bargaining. Bargaining is when you're truly trying to regain control of your reality and your experience and your emotions. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ or another God, this is the process when you're starting to communicate to that God to really have a firm understanding of, truly asking, is there something that I could have done differently with my time? Could I have done something more effectively to avoid the concept of death or loss for an individual, right? And at the end of the day, you truly can't. But it is this particular phase that really shines a lot of light to the next phase, because it's saying that you are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually open to the process of acceptance and resolution, which is our last phase here. When you are in the process of accepting your truth of a loss or grief or separation, it is when you are truly becoming present and one with yourself again. It is the process that you have a true positive outlook on life again. You're no longer focusing on the past or the situation of grief or separation, but you are truly focused on your present and your future. And so these are the 5 stages of grief. The tools of helping children cope with separation and loss vary from a myriad of options. But one of the first options that I would suggest is understanding your child's history, right? So if you are an adoptive parent or resource parent, understanding where that child has come from and their history with their parent, right? Also understanding what are some of the losses that child has gone through in the past, right? And also understanding their relationship with their parent, because that will allow you to assess the level of trauma, the level of separation and anxiety that child may experience as they may be coming into your home, or as you personally may be mentoring that child throughout the process. One of the big pieces of advice that I like to give to all new parents or potential parents is genuinely set realistic expectations when you are with your child. A lot of the times, these children have experienced trauma. They have experienced people telling them that they're going to do things and not follow through with those things. So establishing realistic expectations from the beginning is extremely paramount. Now, from an individual perspective, as a parent, some of the things that I want you to consider would be understanding that you can be patient with yourself and the child. This process will take just that patience. At the core and at the nexus of it all, you have to be patient. Take your time. Things are not going to be smooth. Understanding that many of these children go through things that you have never even heard of or experienced. So in order to be successful in this process, you must be patient. Now, one of the positive things I would also recommend that you do would be start the process of doing what we like to call a journey book. So from the time that the child steps foot in your home or steps foot within your care, that you begin the process of charting that process from beginning to end. One, because during those more challenging times, it's something positive to reflect back on. But also during the more difficult times, you have a place to actually write it all out and get it all out so that you can be the best parent possible for the child. When considering grief and loss, there are 3 groups of people that we should consider. 1, our birth parent. 2, our adoptive and resource parent, which we're going to cluster together today. And then we have our child. So starting with our birth parent. So no matter what the situation was that brought the child to foster care, the birth parent will still inherently feel feelings of pain, grief, and loss. And many of the times, those feelings of guilt will translate to anger, which makes it a little challenging to work with them at times, especially from a social worker perspective or the agency. But for your perspective, being a resource parent, it can be a little bit challenging. However, in many instances, these birth parents also feel the sense and the feeling of being powerless. Sometimes they think that the institution or the agency does not have the best interest of their child at heart. And we know the reason why we are all here today is because we genuinely love kids and the progression of children. So as a mentor, from a social worker perspective or the birth parent perspective, it is our jobs to contribute to the reunification of those, the birth parent and the child, no matter what. And sometimes we call those mentors bridge builders, because it's our job to bridge the gap, to be the liaison between the birth parent and the actual child. Number 2 would be our resource parents or adoptive parents. So I always like to start off with, it's important to do a self-examination of your personal internal why. So why do you want to be an adoptive parent? Why do you want to be a resource parent? Many times, our personal experiences of grief has led us to this point to actually seek to be an adoptive parent or resource parent. Personally, in many instances in relationships or marriages, issues of fertility may arise, which causes an individual to be a resource parent or an adoptive parent. Sometimes feelings of guilt, shame, or embarrassment of how our adult children has manifested and shown up in the world, and we consider this an opportunity as a redo. So I can get an adopted child or resource child or a foster child to be able to impact their lives, to be able to have them show up in the world and be better. So regardless of whatever your why is, it is important to understand that being a foster parent it's temporary a lot of the times, and that the goal is to reunify the child with their parent. Now, from an adoptive parent perspective, to be a little bit more specific, when you have a child in your life for a long period of time, it is important to seek a support system, whether it's with your church, your family, a support group, your spouse. It is important to have someone there to support you through these challenging times, because they're going to come. Now that we've reached the conclusion of our lecture today, I would like to open it up for any questions that you guys may have. Okay, if you guys don't have any questions, that's totally fine. But in the meantime, if you guys think of anything or have any additional questions, once you leave today, I'm always available. So feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But I'm looking forward to staying connected with you guys within the coming weeks, and have a great day.